important subject. Today we're going to be talking about where we live. And of course, the place that we choose to live changes over time depending on what's going on in our lives, right? So my husband and I started out in a teeny tiny apartment above a garage in Traverse City. In the closet, there were gaps between the floorboards where we could actually look down through the floorboards and see cars in the garage that belonged to our landlord. When we were ready, we bought a little house, and after we had 2 children and we were bursting at the seams in that little house, we built a house right around the corner. And then when we moved here to Grand Rapids, by that time we had 3 littles under 7, and so we had to get a bigger house. Well, now the littlest of those littles, my baby, is now 6 feet tall, a senior, loves to play football, and he's going to be leaving. His plan is to go to college next year. And so Mark and I are already talking about, well, what does our plan look like next? We no longer need the swing set and the backyard that we have spent countless hours in with our kids and hosting school events and things like that. And we don't really know what that next step is going to look like, but we're just really excited to explore whatever type of living arrangement is going to serve us best for probably the next 10 years until, he retires. And he keeps telling me I can never retire, but we'll see about that. So today we're going to be talking about that. And I don't know where all of you are at in that regard. You might have some similar thought processes, you may not. And the cool thing about attending these talks is there's no right or wrong answer. There's no one way that makes sense for any person, family, couple, or otherwise. The design is just to learn all about your options so that you can make the best choice that is for you. And today we're going to be talking about the idea of senior living and specifically senior communities. So moving for you someday might look like a home or a condo that simply has a different layout than what you currently have, that possibly allows for one-floor living. Now, maybe the goal might be to create what we call a lock and leave lifestyle that just means that you can travel wherever you'd like without having to think about somebody taking care of your home. And maybe that just looks like a small senior apartment. You never know. Maybe you have the option of moving in with your kids. How does that sound? That's what I thought you were going to say. The point is that the options are endless. And that is a beautiful thing, that you just have so many options. And even when we talk about senior communities, so today we have 2 amazing senior communities on our panel, both that provide full options of care, but with a completely different business model. And even in the senior, when we say senior communities, do any of you still conjure up something that you may have visited with your parent or grandparent that's what would be called an old folks home? Who thinks of that? Any of you? Okay. I mean, there's kind of that idea of like, well, I don't want to go to an old folks home.
Come on, it's safe.
Well, any of you who have explored any of the senior living options here in West Michigan over the past few years can safely say that the old folks home that we once thought of, these are not them. They're beautiful, they're bright, they're inviting. And even the senior communities themselves come in every shape, style, culture, and price point. So it's really, really important that you get the opportunity to learn about what those options are and to explore them and to get familiar with them so that you can, help make that decision for yourself. And as I often encourage people, even if that's a contingency plan. So I know that, many of you might be in a situation where it makes sense and that you desire to age in place. And if your house is conducive to aging in place or those changes can be made, that can be a wonderful option. There's a lot of things that factor into that. But even for those who plan to age in place, there's often a time when that no longer works for whatever reason. And it's always great to already have a contingency plan in place for what might happen if that plan changes. And so we're going to start out with Tom, who is our illustrious sound guy, been one of my sponsors and supporters from day one. And in addition to exploring senior communities, I feel really strongly about the idea of having a Sherpa. You guys know what a Sherpa is? All right. So it's basically a guide if you're climbing a mountain, and since I don't climb any mountains, I explore senior communities. I use someone like Tom because they can often know the ins and outs. It's kind of like being able to see the kitchen of a restaurant that you like and really know what's going on as opposed to just talking to the waiter. And that's a little bit, to me, like senior communities. It's awesome. I mean, the salespeople are wonderful and authentic, but I think that when you can also talk to somebody who will present some questions that maybe you haven't thought of, I think that can be the secret sauce, because the goal of all communities is that once you get there, that it is a good fit and that you're happy and that you stay, because that, of course, benefits everyone. So I'm going to let each of these guys introduce themselves and then start with some questions. One quick thing, so all of you have your handouts. As you're going through, please hold your questions to the end, and keep in mind if a question's really specific or personal, it's going to make sense to talk to them afterwards. Anything that you need, just check it on the box. We will get a hold of you later and reach out and find out more about what we can do for you and how we can answer that question. So, all right, Tom, you're up.
This is a great group. My name is Tom Carabalese. I am the owner of Assisted Living Locators of Greater Grand Rapids and the Lakeshore, and I am a Sherpa for people. I help people navigate the topic of senior living.
Good morning. I'm Natalie from Samaritas Senior Living. We are on 32nd Street between Breton and Kalamazoo Avenues.
Hello, I'm Jo Ellenbass. I'm with Covenant Living of the Great Lakes. I am the sales counselor there, and we are located on the west side of Grand Rapids, along with...
And my name is Eric Nielsen. I am the newest member of the sales team at Covenant Living. I've been there for about 8 years. Looking forward to meeting every one of you today.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we're going to start with Tom. So, Tom, tell us about the basic function that you perform for seniors, and also who pays for it? How much do you charge?
So I had something I was going to say, but her intro got me, my wheels going. So yeah, I am sort of like a god, like a Sherpa. So imagine you were planning a trip to Europe, and you were going to France. These folks are like ambassadors to each one of the towns, or municipalities in France. I will take you, I'll chart a course for you to these different towns and help you understand what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, points of interest. So working with a person like myself, we can create, craft a solution for you that's unique. Now, who pays for it? Often no one, okay? The model that I use, much of the work I do is pro bono, but in certain circumstances, certain communities will give me a fee for working with their team and bringing them a client that's appropriate. So some do, some do not. But it's very important to note that I support all communities, whether they do or do not. And there are certain resources in the marketplace that will only direct you to the places that will compensate you, much limiting the possibilities that you might look into.
Speaking of that, so Who's done a Google search for senior living? Any of you out there? Okay, a few of you. All right. So often, or if you've even heard a commercial for caring.com or a place for mom, I know years ago when I first heard commercials, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. That's such a great idea. Oh, I should give them a call. Or my own mother, who now has finally found a place to call home. But as I learned more about this industry, I really heard the difference between the place, those types of places, basically internet searches, and what some of the local senior living advisors like Tom do. So Tom, if you can really explain what's the difference between signing up for a place for mom online and what you do and how it compares.
So first let's look at some terms. The term referral and the term placement, okay? Referral is an activity, all right? I can refer you to a good restaurant. I can refer you to a doctor or an attorney. But a placement is an outcome. So there's referral and there's placement. That's what I do. I do both referral and placement, but the primary job I have is successful outcomes, successful placements. A place for mom pretends to be that. If you watch their commercials, if you go to their website, they would give you every reason to imagine that they do what I do. They do not. They are what's known, and I'm not just calling them out, Caring.com, others are web-based lead aggregators. That seems like a big name. But a lead aggregator uses multiple platforms like the internet, advertising, all different platforms to get your information. They want your information. Once they have that information, they sell it. They sell it to communities. Their client is the community. You are a means to a transactional end for them. They don't really care about the outcome other than that you get placed somewhere that will pay them. They will only, so first of all, two more terms that I want to introduce. One is called rogue, going rogue. Let's pretend that you're here in Grand Rapids and you have two children, one of whom is local, the other one lives in Spokane, and can't come here to help out, but thinks, well, I'm at the office, I'll just do a little Google search on Samaritas. So they type in Samaritas, and the website that comes up is not Samaritas. It's actually a place for mom, because a place for mom has hijacked through something called SEO, search engine optimization. They put so many millions of dollars into this that they make sure that when you put in Samaritas, they're going to come up first. And you click on it, your nephew in Spokane or your daughter, and they put your information in. Boom, you're done. They have hijacked it. Now, the next thing that happens is they are going to broadcast your information to all of the communities that will pay them, and your phone will blow up, okay? Your phone will start ringing with well-meaning salespeople doing their jobs. They get this thing, and it's called speed to lead. And as soon as think of little fire stations, and the alarm goes off, and ding, 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 ding. They're all hopping in their trucks and going to the fire. So your phone is going to start to blow up. And they're going to say, oh, why don't you come into our community? They're doing their jobs. But this is not a good situation for you. So there's a huge difference. They are a lead aggregator. I am a referral and placement professional.
Yeah, there's a big difference between spitting out a list and getting calls rather than working with someone like Tom who arranges and goes on the tours with you and walks through and encourages questions that you may not have thought of based on your needs. I mean, just night and day differently. So many seniors I have spoken to really don't want to think about senior living until they feel that they're ready to move. So what is the best time for individuals or couples to become familiar with local senior living options?
That's a great question. Thanks so much for asking it. When I say December 25th, raise your hand. What's December 25th, right? You know what that is? How about April 15th? Right? Excellent, right? Your spouse's birthday? Yes, you better raise your hand. You better know that. But what's the date of your next life event? I went into the doctor for a hernia repair and found out that they were going to change my aorta that week. Okay? I didn't plan for that. Things like strokes, the death of a spouse, a major accident, things like that. You don't know when that date is. So when people say to me, "Yeah, it's a very good idea, young man, but obviously looking at Mary and I, you can tell we're not ready." And I say, "What is ready? Is ready on your calendar? What day is ready? Is it December 25th? I know what I'm ready for on December 25th. So the other bad word is soon. Okay, well, we're going to look into that soon. Ready and soon, they don't cut it for me. Okay, I know that I need to be on a diet, and I think I should do that soon. Well, obviously, that's not working out for me. So I think proactivity is your absolute best friend. And if you have children and you do have a life event, they're going to scurry into action and try to solve the problem, often creating conflict in the family. Well, Dad likes me better. Well, Mom always trusted me with the money. Okay. So that's going to create problems, and they're going to go out into the marketplace without a Sherpa and try and figure it out. They might end up with a lead aggregator like A Place for Mom, or maybe that's your nephew in Spokane that does that to you. But anyway, at the end of the day, you want to be proactive. So if you get with a person like me or someone who does what I do, and there are many good ones here in the Grand Rapids area and across the country, you're going to have a proactive dialogue. They're going to look at your finances, your interests, your health circumstances. Your legal, are your powers of attorney set up properly? How are your finances organized? Then they go into the kitchens of the communities. They know the staffing, they know the management, they know who's recently purchased who, who's the new executive director. And so they're going to be able to give you a solution that is accurate to the marketplace you're in. Not somebody in some call center that's saying, "Oh yeah, here are 12 places that you should go and waste your time visiting." Because you might go there and they're totally not for you. Okay, so how did that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So take me through some of the questions that you would ask when you first sit down with an individual or a couple they're like, "Hey, we have no idea what we really need. We're just thinking that it would be a good idea to be proactive, and we'd like to start exploring senior living." So what are those questions?
So, I'd like to say that there is a set list, and I do keep a list to make sure that I don't forget something, but it's definitely a conversation, okay? All of you are unique. Many of you have preconceptions about the marketplace. You might be afraid that it's a nursing home or whatever. So the first thing I want to do is understand who you are and where you are in your process. It's very conversational and very unique, like your DNA. I don't have one set solution for anyone. If your home is the right solution for now, then we work with resources here to make sure that home is safe and that you're safe in that home. If there are things in your horizon, one thing a lot of people don't do is to think about the trajectory of their life and their health and their finances and things. I'm looking 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, and I'm saying, who is this person going to be? What are their needs going to be? I will not move a person from where they're okay to where they're okay. I'm already thinking, communities like these can take care of you for the long haul. So I'm going to be exploring with you the big picture of what your needs are. Economics, geography. Who is going to pick up the phone in the middle of the night if there's a problem? Which one of your children is most likely, or who's going to pick up that phone? I want you within 20 minutes of that person. Okay? Because that's a big thing. Economics. What are you going to be able to afford, and what do we need to do now to maximize your income going forward so that the solution is a sustainable solution?
Yeah, that idea of sustainability is so important, because I have actually talked to people who have moved into communities and then later had to move out because possibly their finances ran out or something changed. And so those are really important questions as you're exploring these places to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for the long run and not just the short run.
And sorry to say, people who are transactional, who just want you to move so that they can collect a fee, they don't care about that. You want someone who is going to be outcome-based and who will remain involved with your care ongoing. My clients that I have placed, I look out for them ongoing. I check in on them to make sure they're okay. These communities have a mechanism for transition. They're going to be looking for transition. I partner with them to ensure that the transition for my outcomes is going on and that it's appropriate.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It brings to mind, I had just met a couple this past week at an expo, and they talked about moving into, that they were looking for a condo. And I said, well, where do you live now? And they're like, a condo. And I said, well, how long have you lived there? 2 years. And I said, well, why are you moving then? Well, we walked in and we loved the view, we loved this, but we just didn't realize that it was way too small for us and it wasn't going to work. And I said, you had the wrong realtor. It's kind of the same thing with communities. It's not just, many of them are beautiful, most of them are beautiful, but you really want to look at the deeper questions and the deeper things that all of them can provide to make sure that, a year or 2 or 5 years down the road, that community is still going to be the best place for you to call home. So Tom, what are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see on a regular basis when people are exploring senior living options, and what is your best advice for avoiding that?
Well, one thing is something you just brought up. When the kids go on a tour, they say, oh my gosh, look at the crown molding. Aren't those drapes beautiful? Yes, great. But crown molding and drapes will not take care of your mother. People take care of your mother. And the communities that I gravitate towards are ones with mature management staff, management and a culture that has evolved over time. They're able to attract and retain the best personnel. People are going to take care of you. They're going to have activities that are evolved. So these new buildings, I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just saying that crown molding won't take care of you. So that's one pitfall, is aesthetics. Another one is going to be, look at the quality of the programs. Places will say, well, we have independent living, we have assisted living, we have memory care, we have skilled nursing. Okay, that's true. Those are little badges, and that's great. You want to look into, well, it's the difference between Italian food and Italian-style food, okay? Italian-style food is not Italian food. A memory care, that is a secure location in the community is wonderful, and you have to have that for people who have elopement issues, exit seeking and so forth. But that memory care also needs to have a memory program or memory care there. And so you're going to want to look at that. There's skilled nursing. You're going to look at the quality of the skilled nursing, the assisted living. What are the tiers of assisted living and what kinds of activities do they do? The name itself, sometimes people will go, oh yeah, it has everything there. I go, well, that's great, but let's look at each one of them and make sure that it's appropriate for your needs. So that's a pitfall. Yeah.
Perfect. Anything we missed before we move on to Natalie?
Oh my goodness gracious. I mean, I have 15 minutes, and obviously
He can
this
talk all day.
can go for a while, so I'm not going to go there. But the biggest thing is to go back to what I said, is if you work with the right type of placement individual, they're going to understand who you are and what your needs are. And we are matchmakers, okay? I know these people very well, and we have dialogue well before you arrive. I'm asking them, this is the family I'm serving. Does this seem like a good fit? And then they're going, yeah, we have an opening there. They seem like a good fit. Then I talk to you. This is the community. Then I put the two hands together so that the potential of it being a good, sustainable outcome is very high because of the dialogue we've had beforehand.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to move on to Natalie of Samaritas. So, Natalie, if you can first tell us about your wide range of independent living options, and if you can describe the different apartment options in your main building, and then also just touch on the unique options that you have at the cottages that we'll be going into more in a bit.
Sure. The independent living has, the independent living on our campus, we have apartment style living that is in our 4-story building. We have 3 different size apartments that might work better for one versus another. Maybe you don't want to cook meals anymore, maybe you want a larger space. So we have studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And then we also have independent living condos, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. We call those the cottages. We have active style in one area, but yet all the activities and so on and so forth. We'll get into that, right?
Yep, we will. Yep. So specifically talking about your independent living, what are some of the amenities that your residents enjoy both within your community itself, and then also some of the perks that you have offered that are involved with being a resident of Samaritas, but that are actually outside of your location?
We have several things right on our campus. At the terraces, that 4-story building, we have a little store, we have a restaurant-style dining room, we have a cafe if people prefer a meal to go back to their apartment. We have a library, we have a clinic, we have a wellness area, not to mention all of the activities and all of the things we offer to the residents. There are outings, there is transportation free of charge within a 10-mile radius of Samaritas. If you have a dentist appointment and it's snowing and blowing and you don't want to drive out on those roads, or maybe you gave up driving, we could still get you to your appointment. Maybe it's a lawyer appointment, personal errands, we have a transportation person that could take you there. The many steps of aging, we can handle. The campus that we offer all of these different things is something for you to think about. Do you love crocheting? Do you love playing cards? Do you like to harass your neighbors? Where's my hecklers to make me laugh here? Come on. There's a lot of options around.
You even had woodworking, right? There was a woodworking shop?
We have a wood shop as well.
What were some of the things that you had offered with the membership that were outside of your location?
Sure. So some of the communities, Grand Rapids is a great location. Frederick Meyer Gardens, we have a membership here. Some of our outings that we attend might be the Symphony, might be the theater downtown. We have several memberships that Samaritas pays for, so then you can go onto those activities just included for the ride and for the fun.
Great. Okay, so let's move on to a point where a person might start needing some assistance with certain aspects of daily living. So what are the levels of care that are available on your campus, and what are the best options for couples who move in and then later one of them has a higher level of care than the other, which is a pretty typical situation?
Yes. Our 44 acres of our campus has basically 4 different locations. We have 5 couples that are living in separate locations based on their needs. We also have 1 couple together in 1 apartment. One is still independent living, can still take care of himself, can still do everything for himself, but his wife has multiple sclerosis, needs some assistance. She receives assisted living from our staff, going in 24/7 for that care that she might need. They are in the same apartment. Of course, the ideal situation is to be together, whether it's somebody needing that secured setting in memory care, or maybe it's somebody that needs skilled nursing. If we can keep you together as a couple, we can. If we have to look at different options, we have our moving coordinator, we have our directors of assisted living, we have our therapy director that takes part in a bridge meeting each week to talk about Jim, Bob, Sue at one location that might need to move over to the skilled nursing situation. With us having all of those options on campus, we want to take care of our residents first. Before Tom needs to move in, I might want to move Jim, Bob, or Sue first. Right?
Or my client.
Yes.
And then are those, this isn't on the sheet, so I'm kind of, sorry about that. So are some of those things just charged a la carte then, or how does that work as people need more specific care things? How are those options developed for each resident?
Yeah, we have the different levels of care might include maybe an assisted living charge added into your regular apartment rental. We have all one straight level of assisted living. So some communities in Grand Rapids have different levels of care based on your different needs. You might look at one place that looks cheaper because their assisted living starts at $4,000 or whatever it might be. If you know your ultimate diagnosis is going to get worse and worse, if you have Parkinson's or if you have a serious medical decline that you know is going to happen, maybe that's not what you're looking at. Maybe it's not that independent living location. So a la carte items, to go back to that question, we have a second person fee that can live in the same apartment. They have their monthly rent, but we also might add that second person fee if there is a spouse. There might be an added fee for your pet. You can have a dog or 2 cats. There might be an added fee for a beauty shop visit, it's a salon. They can trim men's facial hair. So it's not a beauty shop, sorry guys. Different things on campus, there might be an added cost for a garage rental, a carport rental. People always want to know what those underlying charges or additional fees could be. We put it all out there right up front.
So I feel like it makes it all the more important for people to visit and get an idea of exactly what it would be for their particular situation. Right? So one of the things that I often talk to seniors about when they're, considering senior living is, well, how's the food? That can make a big difference, right? You either like it. I talk to some that move into these places and they're like, well, I've gained a few pounds because it's really, really yummy. So tell me a little bit about what your options are in terms of meals, and then also if you have residents that move in that have restricted diets of any sort, how do you navigate that?
Within our campus at the terraces, we have a restaurant-style dining room. Servers go to the table just like they would at a restaurant. We have breakfast for a few hours, lunch for a few hours, and supper for a few hours, whatever you want to call dinner in between there. We also have a cafe that offers meals to go. And then some residents, depending on the style of apartment they move to, might get 1 meal a day, might have 3 meals a day. And then as you decide, nope, I'm done cooking, or I don't want cold cereal anymore in my apartment, maybe you want to go for a hot breakfast, maybe you're out to a doctor's appointment and you get back late, we have options. Maybe it's just an a la carte option. Maybe you love the broccoli cheddar soup that is served at lunch and you want to take back another bowl for supper that night. There's lots of dining options. Our menus change out each week. We have a head chef that plans those menus. Up to 10 options each week. Always have a seafood, always have a chicken dish, always have some kind of beef or pork. Also have that grilled cheese always on the menu that maybe you just need that little bit of comfort with. With any restricted diets, our menu also has those allergen symbols. If you have the gluten allergy or the dairy or the peanut or so many allergies that are now popping up, those are labeled on the menus as well, those little wheat symbols or the little dairy symbols. With anybody that might need ground meat or thickened liquids after a stroke and they have swallowing issues, we kind of talk on a one-to-one basis about how we can approach that issue. With our one building being independent living and assisted living, it's up to you to still make those healthy choices. yeah, I want French fries with every meal, but if I have a heart condition and I know I shouldn't have those fried French fries, well, then maybe I should look at the baked potato option instead. And our servers know how things are made. If they can't answer a question, is there breading on the chicken breast and you're allergic to gluten, our chef can answer those questions too.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good start. So cost, of course, is a big concern for many of the clients that I talk with who are considering senior living in any capacity. So can you give us a ballpark idea of what people can expect to pay in terms of an initial financial outlay, and then the range of what a resident can expect to pay after moving in, whether they're in independent living or assisted living?
Yes. So independent living within the terraces and the cottages, we have an upfront fee of $1,000 for the security deposit. That is refundable upon normal wear and tear of an apartment. If things aren't going well and you decide to move out with a 30-day notice, or if you pass away and money goes to a trust fund or your children, whatever that might be. An additional fee up front is a $3,000 community fee. That is basically paying for the new flooring that goes into the unit, and then the paint and the deep cleaning before somebody new moves in. Lots of people say, hey, do you change out the carpet before I move in? You don't want Tom's dust when you move in, right? So yes, we typically do. Yeah, please say that. We typically do change out the flooring unless it's somebody that's been there for a very short period of time. In addition to those upfront fees, those are one-time fees. If you're moving to the cottages and you transition to the apartment style and then you need assisted living, we do not charge those again across campus. Those are one-time fees at this point. And then your monthly rent might be $22.55 up to $40.40, depending on that style of apartment or condo you go into. If those needs change and you start to need assisted living, then of course the price goes up to $6,200 up to $6,500. Again, paying attention to those levels of care that you might need. Those assisted living rates, of course, go higher because we have staff there 24/7 that might deliver medications. They might be there to help you get up and transferred and get into the restroom 4 times a night, however many times that might be needed. They also do laundry, they also change your bedding. Housekeeping comes in once a week and cleans your apartment. How hard is it getting to vacuum? I hate vacuuming. Hurts my shoulder, hurts my elbow. Housekeeping will clean your bathrooms and vacuum your floors and mop your floors. So some of the different amenities that might come with that price, we have a cost comparison at our table that goes through what you might be paying at home right now, including your water bill, including your homeowner's insurance, including maybe you have a housekeeper that you pay to come into your home. Looking at all of the different aspects that you might pay at home. Maybe it's your snow removal coming up. Sorry, said that dirty S word, right? You know, looking at all of the different things that you're paying at home, your grocery costs. Look at how much groceries have gone up. Have you stopped shopping at Meijer and gone to Aldi's now? You know, it's the different things that you are paying for at home that you might not have to worry about as you rent a place. Your shingles, you have a roof leak, you don't have to pay for that at Samaritas. It's all rented. We take care of that.
Great. Yeah, that helps. So now I'm gonna just kind of revisit the cottages for a moment, because that was what I first, when I first got to know Samaritas a couple of years ago, was visiting these cottages, and I was just super impressed. I thought they were really, really neat because they're just like their own condos. And I think condos are just a wonderful option for many people, and I help a lot of clients buy condos. But most certainly in the last few years, I mean, real estate prices have continued to go up. And so the idea of, purchasing a condo, depending on what the time frame might look like, or transitioning to a community maybe at a younger age than you might have originally thought, but taking advantage of essentially their condos, that can really be a good option. I mean, most of the condos in this area that are, typical larger condo in the Knapp's Corner area, you're looking right now between $350,000 and $400,000 all day long, plus the monthly condo fees. So that's, that's a pretty substantial outlay when you're looking at it that way. So if you can talk a little bit about the cottages specifically and why somebody might want to go to a place like Samaritas instead of buying their own condo.
Sure. Again, our condos are all rented, so you're not buying a condo. Maybe you could be there for 2 months and then need to transition. So the fact of renting, again, is attractive to some people. With our condos, why should you move to a senior community versus some of the other condos in Grand Rapids? We are just a senior community, 60 on up. So you're not going to trip over anybody's bike that's left out into the road. You're not going to hear those kids screaming and crying that might drive you crazy anymore. We have like-minded people that might be going through that transition of the aging process together. Maybe you become a widow and you're moving in next to your new neighbor that is also widowed. Maybe it's together as a couple and then all of a sudden one might need more and you transition and we have a conversation. So renting, in my mind, those condos, sometimes your laundry is in the basement or on the first level. You're still navigating stairs, but at our condos, they're all one level. There's one little step in the garage, literally this big. We have the appliances all included. You don't have to worry about your refrigerator going out. We will replace that refrigerator. If the washer and dryer breaks down, we have our maintenance team, or sometimes we have to call in the appliance repair people. So again, rented is sometimes what people prefer to partake in. You might be in a condo right now that might not be big enough. Maybe the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo could work for you. It's all in your preference. We have options. If you don't want to cook anymore, you could go into a studio that includes 3 meals a day.
And you guys are doing open houses
Yes.
at your
Yes.
condo site, right?
Yep. We have 24 condos total, and we had 3 empty. And I hear gossip has it that we just filled 2 more of those, so we have 1 more open. If you're looking at that dirty S word that's coming around the corner here, winter is about to hit. We have snow removal that comes in and does a great job on our sidewalks and driveways. The open houses, we have postcards at our tables about them. We have 1 tonight. We're kind of alternating Tuesday nights and Saturday mornings. So if you're interested in just stopping by, just take a peek at the condo. That could be a 5-minute trek out of your day. Could be a half hour if you want to see more and more. So it's just a low-key stop in and see what we offer.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, the one word that would come to mind is flexibility. So, and I think that even with both of these communities, it does make it really easy to transition if something does change in your life, as opposed to still owning a property. Of course, I try and make senior transitions as easy as possible. And yet, any way you slice it, it's still a lot of work. And when you are in a community and have to transition for any reason, it's certainly less work than selling a property. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to move on to Joanne at Covenant. and her cohort that I should remember the name of, Eric. Sorry about that. So I have known Joanne for many, many years and loved being, thank you. Loved it when I got to visit her at Covenant Village. Same thing, that was really when I was fairly new to working with seniors, and I had no idea that communities like these existed. And when Joe took me through and just how beautiful they were, and she's like, oh, well, we're renovating this one, here's the new granite that we're putting in, and new cabinetry, and the new flooring, and kind of described how when a new person moves in, they get to choose all those things, and
Crown molding and...
Exactly. I was just amazed. So it was really, really cool. So Joanne, it's certainly great to have you back on the stage with us. So let's talk about the basic premise of a continuing care retirement community, and how does that set you apart from other communities that advertise offering what they call a continuum of care?
Sure, so that's a question everyone gets. The great news in West Michigan, like everything from arts, entertainment, is there are so many choices for everyone, and there's not a bad choice. It's going to be the choice of what works well for you. It could be staying in your home to the end of your life. That could be a good choice. Going to a condo, going to a rental property, going from your home to a condo. What a continuum of care is, and there's thousands of them around the country, is a community you want to move in independent like each of you are today. And all of our goals are to stay independent and active to the end of our life. We're in charge of a lot of that, not all of it. He's in charge of, ultimately some of those changes. But within a community, you have the ability, if you have higher levels of care, you're going to transition within the community, whether it's assisted living, whether it's any requirements for specialized memory care. Those are high acuity. I'll tell you, we have lots of people in our independent living community that have cognitive deficits, but because they make those choices early, they can stay independent longer by making the transition. We have rehabilitation, we have skilled. A real distinctive in most of the folks that represent themselves as a continuum care is our promises, Covenant's promises, is we're going to provide care to end of life even if you spend down your private funds. So there is a financial review. It's always very scary. It shouldn't be. It's not that hard. Most of us fly through with colors with no problem. But that financial evaluation is just a moment in time. We don't know what's going to happen for us the next day. So that promise of knowing that you have all levels of care on the community is a good option for some people. Some people, I don't need it. My mother lived to be 101, years old. She was healthy. So that's kind of the overview. You're familiar. We've got Holland Home. We're robust here. Holland Home, Clark Retirement, Porter Hills. I think we have 6 or 7 of them, right?
Yeah, it really is. It's that difference of, instead of just offering all the levels of care, it's the guarantee of still continuing to provide it even if you run out of money, which is it's really tough. A lot of these people move in, they might move in their 80s, and like as we, talked about last month, living to 100, they might be living to 100. Joanne, I know this is off the cuff too, but what's the oldest person that you have in your community?
She just turned in independent living. She just turned 99 on Friday. Our youngest resident just moved from Alaska and she's 61. So we have 4 decades of generations in the community. And I think that's, when I talk about the lifestyle, I always like to define that. We all have our own lifestyle, whether you wear khakis or jeans, or you want to live on a lake, or, in the suburb. It's all a lifestyle that we choose. So it's at our campus, and we've got 19 campuses across the country. At our campus, I see that younger age coming down, or as people call them, the hip and cool people are now moving in, so don't wait.
Yeah, I could move in a few years. Okay, thanks, Tom, I appreciate that. So how long has Covenant Living been around, and how has it evolved over time to meet the changing needs of your residents?
Okay, so Covenant Living has been around for 125 years. We began in the suburbs of Chicago, providing homes to widow and widowers. So it has transitioned now. We actually acquired 2 communities during the pandemic to continue to build our footprint to meet individual needs. One of the distinctives with Covenant Living and the other communities, again, there are no better, it's what's best for you, is our financial strength and that ability to be able to provide those care for individuals. I don't get into financials. I don't know a lot about financials. I have someone that does my financials. But for me, it was really impressive, or I was proud to learn that, when we went into the pandemic, we were financially strong. And if anyone knows what the Fitch Corporation is, I can't tell you a lot about it, but it evaluates nonprofit organizations. When we went into the pandemic, we had a B++ grade, which I just thought was cool because I would have loved an extra plus when I was in school on my B+. And it spoke to a number of things. It speaks to your liabilities. It speaks to how you're using that money, because we're nonprofit. Every dime we spend goes back into the community, back into the care, back into the staffing, which is so important. And then as we came out of the pandemic, we got a new grade and we got an A-. So I felt, knowing how much all of us struggled through the pandemic, to come up with a better financial outlook going into that was pretty powerful and something that I love to share with individuals.
Yeah, that's huge because, like so many things in life, there is a huge difference between communities, not only in the style and the price, but the quality and the quality of care and the financial strength of those communities that also then turns back around and, leads to staffing and the important things that are going to affect your quality of care. So that is very, very important. So as a continuing care retirement community, or you'll also hear me just refer to it as a CCRC, part of the business model includes what most people would consider a very substantial initial investment. So can you talk about why there is an entrance fee and the benefit that residents receive by investing upfront in a CCRC?
Sure. So as Joe had mentioned previously, the most important piece of that would be access to all levels of care. So as Tom mentioned, we never really know how we're going to age, right? So be feeling really well today, tomorrow is a very different story. Every day is a new adventure, right? So that being said, the Lord is really the only one who has those plans in place for us, but we have to be ready for whatever those plans are. So, buying into a continuum, a CCRC, allows you access and guarantees you placement in a higher level of care should you ever need it someday. So many of our parents, grandparents have gone down that road, had a stroke, heart attack, things like that happen. So we have to be prepared when those times do come. So we do have on our campus independent residential living. We have assisted living memory care. We also have skilled nursing services, so long-term care, as well as short-term subacute rehabilitation as well. So it's kind of nice that whatever level of care you may need along the continuum, your needs would be well met at the community. It also touches on the promise of care of life until the end of care throughout the rest of your life. So again, going back to the benevolent program that we have at Covenant, which I believe is pretty unique to us, in that your families don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Whatever my financial profile may be, as long as we're approved on the front end, you are guaranteed the care throughout the rest of your life. Also, grants you access to all of our amenities. So we have an amazing activities department at our community. We have personal walking or private walking paths. We have nature paths through our 40 acres of wooded lots. Church services, a full-time chaplain, nursing services. We have a pool, hot tub, fitness center, sauna, wood shop, gardens, pet park, all sorts of amenities. Really too many to even list. So that's just all part of the initial buying fee as well. Joe will touch on this more in a second, but lots of great amenities as well.
Yeah, and the big thing when you look at specifically that upfront cost, that buy-in, that life lease, we all call it, by the way, something different. It's not to confuse you. We do very similar things. You will know when you go into a community, it's here, it's feel. We can't put it on a brochure. You will know when it's the right community, and there is no bad choice. But those entrance fees, everything operations, everything that Eric described, our number one initiative for the past 2 years has been staff, quality of staff that we're onboarding, and staff retention. There's a lot of investment that goes in that. You know, what do we do to motivate that resident assistant that's really doing the hardest job with our people with higher levels of care? How do we get our chef Adam, who's amazing, to stay around for 10 years? You know, how do we get, and Eric, I should say, I will give you a lot of grace. I invited Eric with Laura 2 days ago because Eric recently took the position as sales partner working with me. But he's been there for 18 years. Eric started, if I may, as a certified nurse assistant 8 years ago in our skilled nursing. He took care of those seniors. He then got his degree in exercise science, physiology. Yeah, long hair. He moved over to our healthcare building to be our fitness coordinator. He was so excited. He had his shorts on. Everyone loved this young guy coming over. That was March 10, 2020. Yeah.
Great timing, Eric.
He looks good on TV. We did on TV. And then as he continued his career path, he moved back into the healthcare building as a healthcare navigator. So one-on-one worked with our hospital referrals, other referral sources for individuals that haven't made a plan often. And something happens very suddenly, you know, to bring them into rehabilitation. And then we were at an event last year, October, I started courting them, and I said, you know, I think in the next year I'm going to add a rep. And I brought him over to the team, so.
She's very convincing.
So Joe, give me an example of what a buy-in amount might be, ballpark.
It's tough. We have 9 floor plans, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom floor plans. And we have 4 different agreements. So if I were to give you a broad range, I'd say you could start at $120,000 for an entrance fee. These have different refundabilities, pieces to them depending on what agreement. And you can go up to a $500,000 entrance fee. Yeah, $500,000. But the majority of that's going to be refundable. So you take this information, it's a process. That financial, we brush on when we initially meet with people. But the point is you've built a financial profile all of your life. So when you're making those decisions, again, whether it's to stay in your home, you know, or take the leap to a continuum or a rental or anything in between, they're all good choices, but it does lean back into what your financials you've built, who you want to live it to for, who you want to leave it for, are there nonprofits you want to give them, are there people you want to support. So those variety of agreements help you make the right choice should you consider the continuum for your next step.
Yep. And honestly, so a number like 100,000, or for that matter, 500,000, it can sound pretty crazy. And yet, if you compare it to the alternatives, for instance, you know, like I was saying with people buying condos, and I help people buy condos even into their 80s all the time that are in that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 range. You know, we often talk about downsizing, but it's not necessarily downsizing, and condos are not necessarily even smaller than the home that you live in. They're often simply different. They're set up with a different layout that's going to work for this next time of your life. And when you're comparing a community to these other choices, whether you're, you know, spending it on purchasing something or spending it on a buy-in where you're really purchasing a contract, as I understand it, and working with a financial advisor, which I always recommend. We've got Sherry Hooper in the back who's, you know, it is so important to have someone in your corner who is helping you to evaluate those numbers for within the big picture of your life and your goals, so that you can really tell that, you know, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, projecting what that's going to look like for the long period. Yeah, can I come in?
So I'm the president of the Michigan chapter of the NPRA, that's the National Placement and Referral Alliance. It's essentially our trade organization. Without something like that, we give a code of ethics and best practices. So when you go to multiple communities that have different platforms and financial approaches, when you work with a reputable placement agent, they're going to take each one of those different approaches and put them on a spreadsheet for you so that you can understand how one will impact you versus the other. And at the end of the day, you see what the outcome is. Just, as Laura's saying, it may seem like, oh my gosh, it's $500,000 here or this, but when you look at it long term, they even out, and it's all about the experience and what they're promising. And a good placement person is going to manage expectations properly so you make an informed decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the bigger picture of your life, things like what Tom was referring to, that, a family member that is close to you, 20 minutes away, should something happen. Well, it's not uncommon for me to work with seniors that they don't necessarily have a person that is here in town, sometimes not even here in the state. And so, looking at your support system is an important part of making this decision, and the idea of even a community like Covenant that guarantees you no matter what, they will make sure that you have care, even if you do end up living 10 years longer than you originally did. There can be a level of comfort to adult children or other family members that may not be able to live 10 minutes and provide support that way, but maybe they can help provide support financially or otherwise, knowing that their parent will always be cared for. So just lots of different ways to look at it. So one of the things that I loved when I first toured your community was the level of customization that came along with choosing a unit. It really was a lot like moving into a new, purchasing a new condo. So can you talk a little bit about the variety of models that you have, and that what are the items that the new residents always get to choose when they decide to move in?
Sure. So with 9 floor plans, our apartment homes range from 700 square feet up to 1,400 plus square feet. You have balconies or you have extended living views. When people move in, they always get to pick the paint, same as Natalie. We never use somebody else's carpet because that's just gross. But individuals come in and, some of our recent bringing down that average median, which we're now at 81 in our senior living community, is one of our gentlemen said, well, the way I figured, I moved in here and this is the last third of my life, so I'm going to do what I want to do. They went to an extent, probably one of the greater ones, they put in heated bathroom floors. Never had one, kind of love it. You have people with disabilities, so they can do customized showers to be able to get around. We have plenty of standards that don't cost a thing. We're going to do new flooring, cabinets, countertops, plenty of choices. But some folks come in and just want to look at a little bit different, and they can make it their own, very personal. And it's important. Are you warm colors? Are you cool colors? Do you need another bedroom? What are those things? So those customizations are really fun and helps make it your own. You want to make it home.
Come on, you don't just paint everything agreeable gray like I do when I list a property?
Oh, no, but I will tell you, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. One of my favorite stories, there are so many, I have so many, but I got this call, young lady, as she told me we were walking down the hall, and she said, Joe, I'm not as old as the rest of these people, and I looked at her and said, right, Joy, she's 92. And my facility coordinator calls and goes, holy cats, Joe, you gotta come down here, this paint cannot be right. So I go down to her apartment, it is lime green. If you look at our logo, it's lime green, and I'm like, Joy, hey, we're painting your room, come on up, you wanna look at it, I really wanna show this to you. So she walks in and goes, I love it. And we said we did too.
Good answer.
absolutely. But our models are kind of agreeable gray. We got that neutral palette for anybody to go either way.
And I just had that question from someone else I was working with recently, and they said, you know, I feel like refreshing the condo that she's going to stay in, and she's like, well, what colors should I choose? And I said, well, what colors make you happy? We've already discussed that, you know, I was brought in because she thought she might need to sell it to pay for care for her husband, and it was really determined that she didn't want to leave. And so I'm helping her stay. And so I said, whatever colors are your colors are the right colors, period. I said, find a pillow, find a picture that you love, pull something out of that, but at the end of the day, since you're not selling, it doesn't matter because it's all you. So that really is true. So Joe and Eric, can you talk a little bit about a day in the life of somebody at Covenant Living? Is there any kind of a typical resident, which I'm already guessing there is not, but any personal examples and stories would be awesome.
That is a really wonderful question, and you are correct. There is no answer for that one. So everybody's day is a little bit different, and that's one of the beautiful parts of the community that we belong to. There are so many different options for activities, events, volunteering. You really can't be bored even if you want it to be. So everybody's day looks a little bit different depending on what you like to do. We have folks that still work full-time. They're still fully employed, working remotely from their homes. We have people that volunteer full-time at our community as well. So everybody's experience is a little bit different. I will say that because we have all of those options, you can elect to do as many or as few of them if you like. Some people like to sit in their apartment most of the day and read, catch up on documentaries. That is totally fine. Other people like to go activity, exercise class, activity. So whatever you like to do, the world is your oyster at Covenant Living, which is really great.
Some of that, like events as well too, is so fun. People are like, what's your calendar? We do have a calendar, but everything's organic from the resident. So we have 2 individuals that have long names that call concierge. They don't say, here's what you're doing for October. The residents write it. So we now have a certified sanctuary monarch butterfly garden that was from one of our residents, and I'm told that the monarchs came very heartily this year. We now have completed or are in the process of doing our dog park that we have on campus. We have one of our more active, I don't use young and old because I can't keep up with 90-year-olds. But one of our couples walked out and they had literally looked like they were going the Tour de France with their spandex on and their hats, the whole bit going Viking. And then you're right, Eric, you have people that love to go down to chapel every Wednesday and love to go to Bible study. The other thing, and I think this is true with all the communities that work with Tom and communities, the thing about community, staying in your home is an okay choice for you, but Lord, I can get passionate about what community is having that neighbor next door that kind of understands the journey that you've been on. When there's loss, we all have loss. I think God made us to be together with people, and I think we learned a lot of that through the pandemic, how being alone just wasn't as what we wanted to be when we had to be alone.
Yeah, I agree that wholeheartedly. There's a lot of different options out there, but there's so much truth to simply that idea of aging in the right place. And we all love our homes, but there is something to be said for the emotional support that we get from community, and there's, you're the only one that can answer that is you. So, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open it up for questions. All right, we're going to start right there.
Both mentioned dogs. Is there a size limit?
They just have to be nice.
Okay, she asked about a weight limit for dogs in either of these communities.
We currently have a weight limit, but like to meet the dog to see how others react to the dog. If it's a 60-pound dog going into the condos, that's a little bit different than a 60-pound dog going into the apartments, walking through the building to get outside somewhere. So it's flexible. The best part about that is our director loves dogs, and she's a sucker for a sweet one.
And Natalie, you're right, it's the, ease of it. So often people with bigger dogs, we work strategically to make sure you're close to, an exit, but they can walk throughout. And that's what created the dog park, because we got some big dogs. And a dog doesn't want to be on a leash all the time. They want to run.
Yeah, and just to add to that, whether it's a community or condos in general, most all condo associations have specific pet policies. So if you're even looking at condos, and that's something I work closely with clients on, it's so important that we find a community that also accompanies whatever pets that they have. And that often can make our search, change our search depending on what that is.
Coventry, you've got your buy-in fee, but you have a monthly.
Yes, we do have an additional monthly service fee as well. So that actually includes essentially everything else. So the only thing that does not include is underground and covered parking. So if you would like a covered space, you don't want to scrape that snow off your car anymore. Sorry, I said the word. Then you can utilize one of those spaces, also of a landline for a phone. So if you're still using the old school phones, we do have a separate charge for that as well.
Yeah, one thing that you want to keep in mind for anyone who is moving into a condo or moving into a community, there will always be monthly fees. There's no way around that. And you just really want to work in the context of looking at, okay, there are fees as we live in our homes. We have all different utilities, and we all have different maintenance things that are typical things. And then in addition to, if you're living in a home, we have the larger outlays when you need a new furnace or when you need a new roof, and that might be a $15,000 charge and a $5,000 charge and a $3,000 charge. And so it's important to really get a handle on what all of those things are and look towards, what are those monthly fees. And what I find is that majority of the seniors, they have some version of a Social Security that is going to cover all or a portion of that monthly fee and makes it sustainable. So, all right, right back there in the blue plaid.
I have a question and a challenge. The first question is somebody transitions to assisted living or to nursing care, do you accept Medicare or Medicaid for payment?
So at Covenant Living, we do accept Medicare and Medicaid for payments in skilled nursing only. So our specific assisted living does not accept Medicaid as a payer source. We do in our skilled nursing, however. And unfortunately, Medicare will really only cover those short-term stays. They don't really have much of an impact as far as a long-term insurance policy. In my former life within Covenant Living, I was, Joe mentioned, our healthcare navigator and admissions director. So very much was involved with the insurance. Rural health insurance, which is always a blast, as many of you know. So, unfortunately, they don't cover the long-term care services, but they do allow you to utilize the subacute rehab services, at least on our campus here at Covenant Living.
Same thing at Samaritas Senior Living as well. That Medicaid is accepted in our long-term care, that skilled nursing setting, not with our assisted living. Some assisted livings in town do accept Medicaid waiver. That's a whole different subject for Laura to cover some other day. So it's something to look out for if that's your end goal in life, to have that Medicaid waiver payment source. There's, again, Grand Rapids has all those kind of options. Sorry.
The challenge is for Tom. There is a senior community in the Detroit area that, besides all the amenities you have, they have a great big long building with garages in it, and hydraulic lifts, and a tool grip. The biggest reason to get me to even think of going out of my house right now is I have a 2.5 stall hobby garage. I'm restoring a 69 Mustang now, and then I got a 65 to go after, that's partially restored after that. So to even get me to think about moving out, something have to happen, I can't work in the garage.
Is the 69 a 390 or a 351?
351 Windsor and some Mach 1.
Yeah, I was a 302 Boss 69, so we should talk better. So that the unique qualities that you look for is why you need need a Sherpa oftentimes. These people do a fantastic job. But before you get to them, when you're going through your list of, I'm not moving unless, that's where you want to, fine-tune your trip by using a Sherpa.
Because both of you have additional garages that someone could rent and do something like that, right? Yeah, it's definitely out there. It just has to do with the community. And just to touch on Medicaid, we will be approaching that later in the year. I believe it's February when we're going to be talking about long-term financial planning for kind of specifically senior living. But I feel like there tends to be this fallacy that some of the estate attorneys say, well, you don't want to waste all your money because Medicaid will pay it. And there is what I want you to understand wholeheartedly is that the places that only accept Medicaid are likely the places that you wouldn't choose and that you wouldn't put your mother and your father in. Okay? So, and not to say that there are certainly those places, there are people that need to go to those places because of their finances. And it's great that we have them. But for those of you that have a home, that have resources that you can use, do not get caught up in the idea that, well, I don't want to use my own money if the government's going to pay me through Medicaid, because those places are simply not the best quality places. And they might say, oh, sure, we've got a Medicaid bed for you. It is in Lansing. That's okay, right? You don't actually want to visit your mom, do you? So you really have to look at that idea of that financial planning piece and finding something that will work for you in the long term, even if, so maybe you have to sell your house and you're going to use that money to pay for your next steps. But it is still so important to have a level of quality care that you're going to be happy with, as opposed to the idea of not wanting to spend your money and saving it for later. So if you have any of your adult kids, don't save it for us, okay? I mean, it's great if someday there's anything left over, if you have used all of your money first for the things that you want in life and for the best quality of care, because I'm going to speak for adult children here and say that first and foremost, we want to make sure that all of our parents have the best care. That is night and day the most important. And if you use up every penny doing that, so be it. If you've done a good job raising your kids, you've raised independent kids that can earn their own darn money to pay for the things that we need in life. We don't need yours. We want you guys to go out and have fun with that money. So it's just my little soapbox for today.
I'm on it too. I think we're all on it.
Yeah? Okay, other questions? We got about 2 more minutes. Okay, right up here in the sweatshirt.
I have a question for Tom. We deal with the east side of the state. You talked about a state association. I mean, obviously, for us, it wouldn't make sense to come to Grand Rapids to do. Is there a website? Is there something that you can look, get a listing of planners?
Yeah, great question. We have 150 offices across the country. We're well represented in the Detroit area. And the NPRA is national. And so you're going to want to look for, it's like a good housekeeping seal or a UL listing. If a person is an NPRA member, they're going to perform at a certain level of professionalism and accountability. There's a grievance process and so forth. Otherwise, it's sort of like the Wild West. You get what you get. So, but I can definitely direct you toward resources that can help you in the same way I could here.
And that's kind of, I'm going to say the same thing where it comes to real estate and other referral things. So if you have somebody that, gosh, I really wish that, my parents are in Ohio and I really need someone to help them downsize and find a community. Fortunately, myself, and I'm going to guess, most of all these others, on stage, we've had the opportunity to just get to know many others throughout the country that do what we do. So if you have people that, if it's across the state of Michigan or even across the country, we can often still help you by providing resources of people that do what we do at a high level that are going to give you good service. And that's really important. So we'll probably have time for one more question.
My question is, you said that the entrance fee is $120,000 to $500,000. How is that determined, and what is that money used for?
So it's based on the floor plan, the square foot that you want. It also is based on the type of agreement you want. We have 4 different agreements with refundability to them. And that money is all operations. So everything for benevolent care, we privately fundraise. We have a very strong benevolent fund on campus. Operations means that we're going to have nurses at all levels of care and assisted living, skilled in rehabilitation. We're going to have chefs. We have a full-time chaplain on site. In independent living, we have 2 full-time nurses. They act as a resource. So maybe if I think about, like if I were in my home and wherever I needed to go get care, you can get all that care on there. So it's on operations. And yes, Tom, it's the crown molding. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Yeah, and
their crown molding is great because they have great people that work there too.
Exactly. And when you think about those, the refund aspect of it, so that's one thing that I feel like can be a fallacy of people I talk to. They're like, well, you have these big buy-in fees and then, you don't ever get those back. But you really do, and often those refunds are like 50%. I mean, you get to choose those when you're signing up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's a 50% refundable, there's a 90% refundable, and the other 2 agreements have refundability on different percentages over a period of 5.5 years. It really is that, and we're not gonna look at your checkbook. What did you spend? What did you go to the mall? We do a financial application update every 2 years. We don't look at it, they go to these actuaries, but that's our promise to kind of identify who's going to need benevolent care in the next 2, 3, 5 years. But with that said, we don't know. We had one couple come, I'll keep it short, New Jersey. He didn't want to come, he's taking care of his wife, doesn't want to leave New Jersey, family's here. Acquired an apartment, redesigned it, had furniture delivered, paid their entrance fee, and he wanted to wait 1 more month. He had a significant health issue. The 2 of them, instead of coming into independent living for what was the foreseeable future, both went to assisted living. We still fulfill that promise because that evaluation is that moment in time.
Yeah, and that's and I will just say that later on in the year, I'm doing a whole presentation very specifically on continuing care retirement communities, because it is very complicated. We'll just tell you, there's no easy cookie cutter thing, and it's important to likely, have your Sherpa, have your financial advisor, have a trusted attorney, look at the different contracts for these places. It is important that you understand what you're investing in, what it is and what it's not. So, okay guys, we are pretty much out of time, so we're gonna do our drawings.